I think that the first real story that I conjured up in my mind, I give it a title, and I must have been then about, I started to write when I was 11, put them down in my form of writing, you know. There was only one who could read it because I couldn't spell. And the thing is that I give this story a title, and it was called The Wild Irish Girl. Well, you know, I went on writing that story over and over again till I was about 15.
Literally the same story.
Practically the same story. It was always about this wild Irish girl running through a wood. And there was the villain after her. And he was trying to get her into a lodge. It's very funny, I should end up in a lodge, isn't it? But he was trying to get her into this lodge. But, you know, I never got any further with that story because I wouldn't let him catch her for the simple reason, believe it or not, I didn't know what he would do with her when he got her into the lodge. I hadn't got to that far yet, you know. The children today would know all right what they would do with her, you know. Mind, I didn't want to write about the people around me. Oh, no, it was this, the fellow that was running after the girl in the wood was a gentleman, you see. And I had to think about gentlemen.
Why is that?
Oh, well, because, you know, when I was 7½, it was brought to my notice that I was illegitimate, you see. I didn't even know the word then. I had no da, that was, I knew I had no da. And I knew from that moment that I was different. Now, it was a very traumatic moment, that.
Can you still remember it clearly?
Oh, yes, I can still see me playing with the girls round the top corner. And, you know, we used to play shops with booty. You know what booty is? Broken glass, you see. And I remember I had the bottom of a beer bottle, and it was beautifully cut. And that could have represented, say, some taffy, something sweet. But somebody nicked this lovely piece of glass. And I remember I had a stand-up fight with this girl, because I'm sure, she had taken this and put it in her booty shop. And I said, I'll go down, I said, and I'll tell me da of you, you see. And I used to call my grandfather me da, you see. And she said, you ain't got no da, you see. It's your granda. And she said, you ain't got no da. And this seemed it was sort of an explosion in my mind. I ain't got no da. Everybody had to have a da. They had to be born, you know, and you couldn't be born without a da. And I can see myself going into the lavatory. The lavatory, it was the only place that you could be private. It was the only place that had a bolt on. And I used to spend a lot of time in that lavatory. I caused a lot of distress in that lavatory because we kept lodgers. Especially at dinner time when they came home. And the granda would bang on that door to tell me to come out. And if our Kate was going to blame me, I wouldn't come out. Oh, it was a lot of distress. There was only one lavatory. Little incidents like that.
But you went there when you were told that you had no da?
I went there, yes.
How did you then go back into the house? How did you confront her?
Well, I didn't confront Kate. I thought, I must have a da, and I'm going to ask our Kate. And I can remember clearly. You see, memory, there's no continuity in memory. It's all snatches, like a broken film, you know? And I can see me sitting worried, and I used to always pick the whitening off the wall when I was worried. And then I can see me going down this little alleyway where there was our lavatory and the lavatory far upstairs, you see, we lived downstairs. And you looked up the yard to the kitchen window, and I could see our Kate. She had a cooking table under this window, and I could see her busying. And I knew that when I looked at her, that she was me ma.
Well, I've been unemployed now for nearly 18 months. There's not much chance of me getting a job. None at all. It's not for the lack of trying either.
Everybody in this area totally is very bitter about the situation that's happened on the River Tyne. Like, it's terrible how life's worked out for us. Like, we've got no hope at all.
mean, at one time you could go around the sites and at least they would see you, but now there's big security men on the gate. You can't even get in to see anybody.
This scene of now, it looks like dereliction. I mean, did you feel that the place that you really knew is gone, in fact?
Well, now, in my real childhood, say from I was 3 till I was about 14, during the First World War, this place was absolutely alive, you see. The war makes work. All the people in Tyne-Dock and Shields and Jarrow, they worked along the whole stretch of the river. When I first started writing, when I had done about 6 books, I remember a Newcastle journalist criticised me, my writing, because I didn't put over the cultural side of the North. And I asked him, what culture did I know about the North? The only thing I knew about the North was hard, work. That was my culture. And during my teens, I saw this gradually, the work fading away, and in my 20s, it vanished. And then, it was then that I knew that it wasn't only one thing that made me leave the North. It was a number of things, but quite prominent was this feeling of depression, as it is today.
Now the house was so small, could not support us all. So one of us had surely have to go. And I kissed them all goodbye, with a teardrop in me eye. And I left that little house where I was born. But I'm a true-born Jarrow boy, and at work I'm not afraid. Lose you all, I sing or do a dance. I do anything you say, if you'll only name the day, and give a true-born Jarrow boy a chance. Now I landed in New York, trying hard to find some work, and work, it never seemed to come my way. When I trample up the list of names, starvation in me face, and many the time that I wish that I was dead. But I'm a true-born Jarrow boy, and at work I'm not afraid to please you all. I sing or do a dance, I'd do anything you say, if you'll only name the king, and give a true-born Jarrow boy a chance.
I remember very distinctly the day in 1914 when the First World War broke out. I first became aware of indulgences after my Uncle Jack died. Among his possessions, the priest sent home was an illuminated watch of no particular value, so I was allowed to keep it. And I would take it to bed with me at night and hold it while I prayed for the release of his soul from purgatory. For Jack, I knew, was sure to be in purgatory. So night after night, I would drag him a little further out of the black depths. After months of praying, I got him to the actual gates. I could see his face, and it was saying to me, "Hello, Katie, I knew you'd get me out of this." But where was I to take him? What was I to do with him? By all accounts, he should now go to heaven, up to God. I had never thought of going to heaven. My thoughts never ascended that far. I was either saying prayers to prevent me being thrust into hell, or saying prayers to get somebody out of hell and purgatory. Heaven was a closed shop. I knew nothing about it. So regretfully, I left my Uncle Jack on the other side of the iron gates, and I can't remember praying for him anymore.
It's maybe a question that's impossible to answer and maybe slightly impertinent to ask, but did you, when you were in this stage of appalling breakdown and fears and desperation for a very long time, and obviously you must have thought it over a great deal, and during that time you started to write fiction, do you, looking back, or did you at the time see a connection between the breakdown and the starting to write fiction again, novels?
Well, I didn't think about it as fiction, and I didn't think about it as a novel. I only knew I wanted to write. And I'd come to the, as I said, that I wouldn't wish the devil in hell to have a breakdown, and that if I was faced with the fact of having another breakdown or a killing disease, I know which I would take. But one thing a breakdown does for you, it holds up a mirror to your real self, and if you can't see your real self after a breakdown, you never will. It's the greatest psychiatrist treatment in the world, because you're a judge, you're your own judge. And I knew that unless that I faced up to my early beginnings, unless I could throw the pseudo lady and the pseudo gentleman out of my life and admit to my beginnings, admit to these two terrifying words, which was always upset me, even when I read illegitimate or bastard, always upset. Unless I could say, look in the mirror and say, well, yes, that's what you are. You're a bastard, but you're still yourself. I mean, what does it mean? What does a bastard mean? It means that your mother and father weren't married. But there's thousands of you, I said. This is what I said to myself. There's thousands of you. You know, you're not alone anymore. You see? And I had to have this long session with myself. And it was, and I said, all right, I'll write it down. I'll write the background of my early beginnings down. I didn't think about, I'm going to do a novel or I'm going to do fiction or romance, nothing like that. I just wanted to put down the background of my mother and my grandmother. From I saw it, from I'd felt it in the kitchen, from the surroundings of the new buildings in Bogey Hill, further up the road, Shields and Jarrow. The slummy parts, not the good parts, not West or Croft Terrace, but the slummy parts. And so I wrote this story called Kate Hannigan. And I thought, that's it. But it wasn't. The breakdown was still with me. And I wrote another one called The 15 Streets, and I brought more in. I brought the docks in, and I brought the mines in, and I brought men out of work and everything that I'd been brought up with. Still the breakdown was with me. I should be rid of these fears. Everything should be clear. I should be marvelous. It wasn't. I thought, well now, I couldn't remember one happy incident that had happened in my life. Nothing. Everything I looked back on was black. There was no humor, there was nothing. And then I thought, well, there was humor. Katie laughed. Katie joked. Katie played. And so I wrote the first of the Mary Ann stories. She she had no da. And I thought, this'll do it. It didn't. And then I had to face up to the fact that all this was still a facade. I wasn't getting inside at all. My mother was still alive. She was with me now. I brought her back from the north to die. I wish she would die. I'd been wanting her to die for years. She had been the plague of my life. I was 47 then, and she had been on my back, as I thought, for years. It was a love-hate relationship. She was the loveliest woman on God's earth, and she didn't drink, you know. But once she couldn't take drink. She just could. Other people could take 6 glasses, you know, whiskey and not shoot. She could take one, and her eyes would sort of change, and she would want to sort of have a bit of carry on, and that was something to me. And so I knew that I couldn't do it. She was with me, and as I said, I wanted her to die. But once I got her back in that house, I thought, no, she mustn't die. She must live, and we must get to know each other. And I had given up God, the Catholic Church, but I prayed and I said, give me a chance too. I need to find myself as much as I need to understand her, because she had had one hell of a life. Really a terrible life. When I look back now, I don't know how she suffered it. And so for 3 years, we lived together, and we had peace, and we laughed, and we joked. But she died. And when she died, I felt guilty. But my doctor said to me, everybody feels guilty, you know, when the mother or father dies, if they've been the most marvelous daughters or sons in the world. But I thought I should have talked to her more about this man. I should have brought it into the open. So many things I should have asked her, and so many things I should have done. But the thing was that it seemed to me that she said to me, write it all down, Henny. And so I did just that. I wrote Our Kate. And it was just like as if I'd put a hoover inside myself and swept it all out. But the first draft, she died in 56. I started it in 56, just shortly after she died. And I should have sort of thought of all the nice things that did happen, but it didn't come like that. When I finished that first draft, it was full of bitterness. The bitterness came up off the page. Why should this child have had to go through this? Why had I had that terrible childhood? And it was at the beginning. Why had I been scorned? Why I had to bring her to and start this awful life again in Hastings? Why I had to meet a friend who was supposed to be a friend who was so jealous of me that I expected to be shot on my wedding day? Why this? Why had I to lose 4 babies? Why I had to have, which I didn't know I had, an inherited blood disease? Why had this all to happen to me? But I didn't realize it. It was all out in that first draft. And when I read it, I thought, I felt relieved, but I thought I could never publish this. And so I left it. I was still writing other books, and I left it lying for a time. And I started it again. And I thought, I mustn't say that about her there, and I mustn't say that. I must see her as I know she was, as I know the beautiful character, the kind character, the humorous character, the loving character, the woman who was worked into the ground. I must see her like that. But in the second draft, she didn't come like that. The people that, especially in Harton, the girls who had tried these officers, who had tried to take my good name away, the only thing I valued in my life was to keep myself, as I called, pure. I was a very good Catholic. I was a very good Catholic. And if I do anything, I like to do it well. And so I had boyfriends in that way as a boyfriend, not like they would have a boyfriend today. I married, let me say this, I married when I was 33 and I was still a virgin. And so I was a good Catholic up till then. But these people in this institution, they had tried, they were waiting for me to become pregnant. You know what I mean? Waiting for me to follow our Kate. They even suspected that I had syphilis because I had spots on my stomach. You know, I bring it out in the book. And so there was the bitterness. I poured it out. All these things that had happened to me in the second draft. I thought, it can't, no, it just can't go. Can't go. I did it again. I did that draft 8 times, and it took me 12 years to write that book. I have written my tale in the room where Kate died. The roses are tapping on the window again, and her presence is strong about me. I look towards the corner where her bed stood, and she is smiling at me. You'll feel better now, Lass, she says. You think so? Sure of it. Because you've learned to forgive, things will settle in you now. Remember that piece of poetry you read to me once by somebody with a name like Ammonia? Well, say it now, and say it every day, and it'll come true. Believe me, lass, it'll come true. I will seek beauty all my days. Within the dark chaos of a troubled world, I will seek and find some beauteous thing. From eyes grown dim with weeping will shine a light to guide me, and in sorrow's hour I shall behold a high courage. I shall find the wonder of an infinite patience, and a quiet faith and coming joy and peace. And love will I seek in the midst of discord, and find swift eager hands outstretched in welcome. I will seek beauty all my days, and in my quest I shall not be dismayed. I shall find God. Goodbye, Kate, and thank you for giving me life.